I accidentally sent a text meant for my boyfriend to my boss. So I'm sitting at my desk, minding my own business when it happens. You know, that moment when your life suddenly feels like a sitcom and you're the punchline. That was me, today, when I accidentally sent a text to my boss that was meant for my boyfriend. Now, before you ask, no, it wasn't some work-related mix-up. It wasn't a, hey, can you approve that report? Or, I'll be late to the meeting. Nope, it was way worse than that. Let me set the scene for you. It's around 2:30 p.m. and the office is quiet. Just the usual hum of keyboards clicking and the faint buzz of fluorescent lights overhead. I'm in the middle of wrapping up a few things for work, but my mind keeps wandering. Why? Because tonight's the night. My boyfriend and I have this long-awaited date night planned, and I'm excited. I've been counting down the hours all day. We've been together for about 3 years, and even though we have a pretty comfortable routine, every once in a while we like to spice things up. Tonight, we're having a little fun with the outfit choices. Nothing crazy, just me putting on something a little risque, a little bit of a surprise. We had been texting back and forth about it, planning the perfect outfit for the evening. And then, while I'm typing my reply to him, a message pops up from my boss. Boss, hey, can you send me the files from this morning's meeting? I know you're busy, but it would be great to have them by the end of the day. I briefly glance at my phone, sigh, and mutter under my breath. Of course, no problem. Then I quickly go to reply to my boyfriend, because, priorities. Now, I don't know what happened in the moment, but I did the unthinkable. In one swift movement, I texted my boss the message that was meant for my boyfriend. I'm thinking of wearing the black lace dress tonight. You know, the one that's really tight around the waist with the slit up the side. I can't wait to see the look on his face when I walk in. I hit send without thinking twice, and for a second I didn't even realize what I had done. Then I heard it ding. My phone vibrated on my desk. I looked down, and that's when my heart stopped. I stared at my phone screen in complete disbelief. The message was still sitting there in all its glory, in front of my boss. I could feel the blood draining from my face, like I was slowly being consumed by a giant hole of embarrassment. My mind raced. What do I do? What do I say? How do I fix this? I must have read the message 100 times in the span of 2 seconds. Every word made me feel more and more exposed. It was like I could feel the awkwardness building up around me, like the air was getting thinner. I could already hear the possible consequences of this mistake echoing in my head. What if he thinks I'm unprofessional? What if he tells HR? What if he just never looks at me the same way again? I quickly checked the phone number. Was I texting the wrong person? Nope, it was my boss, the very same person who had a standing meeting with me about upcoming deadlines in just an hour. My boss, who I barely knew on a personal level, was now privy to my lingerie choices for a date night with my boyfriend. This was a nightmare on another level. At first, I thought maybe I could pretend I didn't send it. But then the horror struck again. I noticed the read receipt. Oh God. There was no going back. He had seen it. My carefully curated plan to never show weakness at work had just gone straight out the window. I immediately went into panic mode. I'm talking about full-blown, sweating through my shirt, packing the office-level panic. I felt like I was about to have a meltdown, but I couldn't just sit there and stew. My fingers trembled as I tried to formulate some kind of response. My mind was spinning. What could I say? What would even be the right thing to say? I decided I needed to act fast. I needed damage control. Maybe I could just pretend I was sending the message to a friend? No, that was dumb. I couldn't say it was a typo because that would just make it worse. I grabbed my phone again, hoping for some miracle solution to fall from the sky. I mean, if this was a movie, I'd expect some kind of cool, dramatic twist where everything gets saved at the last second, right? But this was reality. I opened the message thread with my boss, ready to type something like, "Sorry about that, I was just texting my friend." But then it hit me. What if he responds? And what if his response was way worse than I was imagining? In a blur of panic, I typed, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. That message was meant for my boyfriend, not you. I don't know what I was thinking." And then I just stared at it. Should I add more? Should I apologize again? But then my phone buzzed. I nearly dropped it. He had replied. I couldn't look. I had to look. I took a deep breath, then another. Honestly, I don't even know why I was still holding my breath at that point. Maybe I thought that if I didn't breathe, it wouldn't be real. But of course it was. The screen in front of me displayed his response. "No problem, Sarah. Glad you've got your evening plans sorted. Sounds like you'll have a fun night." What? At first, I felt a wave of relief. He wasn't angry. He wasn't firing me. He didn't even sound weirded out. But that relief lasted about 3 seconds before it was replaced with pure, unfiltered cringe. He was being cool about it. It was like the most awkward response ever, but in the most professional way possible. Like, yes, he definitely saw the message, but he didn't want to make a big deal out of it. He was just trying to salvage whatever was left of our professional relationship with a nonchalant emoji. But that emoji, that tiny awkward little smirk, it spoke volumes. It wasn't a haha, no big deal kind of emoji. It was a I have no idea how to react to this, but I'm not firing you, yet kind of emoji. It was like we were both silently acknowledging the complete weirdness of the situation without saying it out loud. Oh my God, did he just read about my black lace dress? I wanted to crawl into a hole, disappear off the face of the earth, and pretend this never happened. But I couldn't. I had to keep working. I had to keep pretending like this wasn't the worst day of my life. The absolute worst day at work, ever. I felt like my face was on fire. I could barely concentrate on my computer screen, my hands shaking slightly as I tried to finish my tasks. I was basically just staring at the screen, occasionally typing something that made zero sense, all while pretending that everything was fine. But then something bizarre happened. My boss, after sending me that message, actually sent me an email about a meeting we had coming up. A meeting. Like nothing ever happened. It was like he just moved on, as though a text about my sexy outfit didn't completely derail the rest of the day. I sat there for a second, totally paralyzed. How was he handling this better than I was? Was this just one of those professional boundaries things? Was I somehow the only one who found this too awkward? I couldn't decide if I was relieved or more embarrassed. So after the longest few minutes of my life, I took a deep breath and responded. A little too late, but I had to do something to reclaim some semblance of professionalism. Thanks for understanding. I'm so embarrassed, I really didn't mean to send that to you. Let me know if you need anything else from me today. I hit send, but as I looked at the message, I started second-guessing myself. Was that too formal? Too apologetic? Did I sound completely unprofessional by over-apologizing? Should I have just left it alone? The silence between us was unbearable. I couldn't tell if I was still feeling the heat from the awkward exchange or if I was just imagining things. I glanced at my phone, but it stayed quiet. Nothing else from him. No follow-up text. No more weird emojis. Just nothing. That night, I tried to put it out of my mind. I had been so embarrassed all day that I needed to distract myself with something, anything. My boyfriend, Ben, was coming over for a quiet evening in. I was hoping that some Netflix would help me forget what had happened earlier, but as soon as he walked in, the guilt started to creep back in. Ben could always tell when something was off. I guess I'm not as good at hiding my feelings as I thought. As he set his bag down and wrapped me in a hug, I buried my face in his chest, trying to avoid making eye contact. Hey, what's going on? You okay? He asked, his voice soft, but I could tell he was already sensing my tension. I sighed, pulling away from him just a little. You're not going to believe what happened today, I said, and immediately his face lit up in that familiar way, like he was about to get a good laugh out of whatever crazy thing I had got myself into. Oh God, what did you do this time? Ben grinned, sliding his jacket off and tossing it on the couch. But my face must have given me away because the smile slowly faded and his expression shifted to one of concern. Ben, I started, rubbing my hands over my face. I sent a text to my boss. That was meant for you. He blinked. Wait, what you sent? What? I took a deep breath and explained the situation, all the way down to the black lace dress and how I had somehow made it seem like I was planning an intimate evening with my boss rather than with my boyfriend. As I relayed the details, I felt the anxiety building up again. Every word I spoke just made it worse. So, yeah, now he knows about my, sexy plans for the night, and I don't know how to act around him tomorrow. It's so awkward, Ben. I swear I'm going to have to quit my job after this. Ben was quiet for a moment, and I was too afraid to look up at him. My mind was running wild, imagining him either cracking up or worse, being totally grossed out. But when I finally gathered the courage to glance up, he was just staring at me, his eyebrows furrowed. Okay, first of all, that's a little strange, he said with a grin, his tone light but sympathetic. But hey, it's not a big deal. People do weird stuff all the time, especially when they're stressed. You don't need to stress about it. I wasn't convinced. I wanted to hide under the blanket and pretend this conversation never happened, but I forced myself to sit up. I still feel like I just ruined everything, and I have to see him tomorrow. Babe, it's fine, he reassured me, his voice soothing. He's your boss. He's probably seen worse. I mean, I'm sure he's had his own embarrassing moments, right? Just laugh it off and don't overthink it. I wanted to believe him, but my nerves kept getting in the way. I don't know, I muttered. It just feels so personal now, like I've crossed a line I can't uncross. Ben chuckled softly and rubbed my back, his fingers gently kneading at the tense muscles there. It's just a text. Worst case scenario, he might crack a joke about it and move on. Everyone has those days. I didn't quite believe him, but his attempt to comfort me helped ease the tension just enough for me to try to relax. We spent the next hour watching a movie, but my mind kept drifting back to the uncomfortable reality of what I had just done. And of course, as luck would have it, the night ended on a completely anticlimactic note. The next day at work, I walked into the office feeling like I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. I could practically feel my boss's eyes on me as I passed by his office. The awkward silence from the previous day hadn't been broken, and it was killing me. Then during lunch, I bumped into him in the break room. He was grabbing his coffee, looking totally normal, like nothing weird had happened. But then, he smiled. A small, smirk-like smile that immediately made my stomach drop. "Hey, Sarah," he said, his tone way too casual for my liking. "Did you end up getting that dress you were talking about last night?" I froze, the blood draining from my face. Oh my God. Yeah, I stammered, trying to act like it was just another normal conversation. "It's just, a thing I'm trying out, nothing fancy." He didn't look convinced. The smile only grew wider, like he was savoring every moment of my discomfort. "Sounds like it'll be a fun evening," he teased. "Just don't forget to add some candles. Gotta set the mood, right?" I literally had to stop myself from physically cringing. Was this really happening? Was he actually playing along with this? And then, in the most casual way possible, he dropped the bomb. "Just, make sure you send the right texts next time. Wouldn't want you accidentally sending me any more updates on your plans." My face felt like it was on fire. I wanted to melt into the floor and disappear. I just muttered a barely audible "sorry about that" and practically bolted out of the room. My boss's chuckles followed me, and I could feel the red in my cheeks deepening with each step. I'm so never going to live this down. That evening, as I sat across from Ben at dinner, I could feel the tension building. I'd been avoiding bringing up the office situation all day, but I could tell he was waiting for me to say something. My nervous fidgeting with my fork wasn't helping. "Okay, what's going on?" he asked, his voice calm but sharp. "You've been acting weird all day." I sighed, setting my fork down and looking at him, my stomach knotting. "It's the thing with my boss. I tried to handle it, but now he's been messing with me about the text." Ben leaned back in his chair, his jaw tightening. "What do you mean, messing with you? What happened?" I took a deep breath, not wanting to make it worse, but I knew he had to hear the whole story. "So, today he literally made a joke about the text I sent him. He was all like, 'Did you get that dress you were talking about?' And then teased me about the candles and, just way too personal. It was so uncomfortable. I feel like everyone's talking about it behind my back." Ben didn't answer right away, but I could see the change in his expression. His eyes went from confused to something darker. I felt it then, that tightness in his body. His shoulders tensed up, and his grip on his water bottle was a little too firm. "Wait, what do you mean, teased you?" His voice was low, almost like he was trying to control something. "Was he making fun of you?" "Ben, it's not like that," I said quickly, trying to diffuse it before things got worse. He's trying to make light of it, I guess, but it's so awkward and I just don't know how to handle it anymore. I can't even look at him without wanting to die a little inside." But Ben wasn't listening. He sat up straight, his face clouding over. "No, you don't get it," he said, his voice sharp now. "That's not okay. No one should talk to you like that, especially at work. And your boss, he crossed a line." I was taken aback by the sudden anger in his tone. "Ben, it's not a huge deal. It's just a stupid joke, okay? It's not like he's done anything worse." "Oh, it's not a huge deal," Ben snapped, his hand slamming down on the table. "You're telling me that a grown man thinks it's funny to make fun of your personal life at your expense, and you think that's just okay? That's bullshit, Sarah." I winced. Ben had never raised his voice at me before, and hearing him so worked up felt like a punch in the gut. "Ben, calm down, it's fine, I started trying to soothe him. "No, it's not fine," he cut me off. "You shouldn't have to put up with that. If he's being a jackass, "Ben, no," I interrupted, now feeling the weight of the situation. "It's just, I don't know, I'm already embarrassed enough. You don't need to make it worse. I'll figure it out. I don't want you going to fight him or anything." But the anger in his eyes didn't fade. "I don't give a shit if it makes things worse. No one should treat you like that. I don't care if he's your boss. If he can't respect you, then he deserves to know that I'm not gonna sit by and watch him make you feel like shit." I could tell he was serious. His hands were shaking and his face was flushed with frustration. The protective side of Ben had always been there, but this felt different. He wasn't just upset, he was furious. And for a second, I almost felt guilty, like maybe I had stirred up something bigger than I'd intended. "Ben, please," I whispered, my voice small. "I don't want this to turn into a thing. I don't want you to get involved." But his expression softened, and he exhaled deeply, as if trying to calm himself down. "I just hate seeing you upset," he said quietly, looking down at his hands. "And I hate that someone like him can just walk all over you, even if it's just a joke. You're better than that, Sarah." I didn't know what to say. I wanted him to understand that it was just a miscommunication, that nothing serious had actually happened. But hearing him so protective over me, in a way I hadn't expected, made me realize something. Ben cared. And maybe, just maybe, I had underestimated how much it bothered him to see me uncomfortable or upset. "I know," I said softly, reaching out to him. "I know you care and I appreciate it. I really do. I'll handle it. I'll talk to him tomorrow. But please, let's just enjoy tonight, okay? I don't want to make a bigger deal out of it than it already is." He looked at me for a long moment, still upset but trying to soften his expression. "I'll let it go for now, But if anything else happens, Sarah, promise me you'll let me know. I'm not letting anyone make you feel like shit. I promise, I said quietly, grateful for how much he had my back, even if it meant he was about to go into protective boyfriend mode at any moment. But just as I thought the tension was dying down, Ben smirked. So when the candles and lace night happening, you want me to help pick out some more candles? I've got a pretty solid Amazon wish list going for that stuff. I stared at him, my face flushing with embarrassment all over again. Oh my God, Ben, don't start. And just like that, the tension broke, but now I had to deal with the awkward teasing for the rest of the night. Next morning at work, I walked into the office with a knot in my stomach. I knew today was going to be uncomfortable. The previous day, I'd barely slept, my mind racing through every scenario where my boss might confront me about the text. I couldn't believe he'd even remembered it, let alone turned it into some joke. But I had a job to do, so I focused on that. I sat down at my desk and opened my email, trying to drown out the dread creeping into my chest. I was about to start drafting a report when I heard the unmistakable sound of my boss's footsteps coming toward my cubicle. My heart sank, but I straightened up, put my professional face on, and turned toward him. Sarah, he said in that overly calm, condescending voice that I'd grown to hate, could we talk for a moment? I looked up at him, my stomach twisting. Sure, I said, keeping my voice as neutral as possible. He glanced over at my desk, then shut the little partition between our cubicles. Great, this was it. This was going to be that conversation. Listen, he began, rubbing the back of his neck like he was pretending to be sympathetic. I know things got a little awkward yesterday, but you know it's all in good fun. You've got to learn to roll with the punches around here. It's all part of the culture, right? I fought the urge to roll my eyes. Yeah, I know the culture, I replied, voice steady but my mind boiling. But honestly, it's not fun when you're making fun of me for something personal, something I didn't intend for anyone at work to know about, especially you. He laughed, clearly not getting it. Oh, come on, Sarah, it was just a harmless joke. No harm done, right? He raised an eyebrow like I was supposed to agree. I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up, slamming my palms onto the edge of my desk, the sharpness of my voice cutting through the air. Actually, no, there was harm done. You crossed a line. You're my boss, not my friend, and that means you should have more respect for my privacy. His face faltered for a second, and I could see that he wasn't used to anyone pushing back like this. He straightened up, his lips curling into a more defensive smile. Whoa, calm down, Sarah. You're overreacting. This kind of thing happens all the time in the office. Just laugh it off. No, I snapped, leaning in closer. I'm not overreacting. You made me uncomfortable, and if you think I'm going to just let you make jokes about my personal life, you've got another thing coming. There was a moment of silence where I could see him processing what I was saying. He shifted his weight, clearly trying to gauge if I was serious. The power had shifted. Now I was the one controlling the conversation. I don't think you realize how serious I am, I said slowly, making sure he knew I wasn't backing down. You want to make fun of my personal life? Fine, but if you ever do it again, I'll make sure you regret it. This isn't high school, and you're not some guy I can brush off. You're my boss, and you need to respect that boundary. I could see the wheels turning in his head, trying to figure out how to respond. And that's when I dropped the bomb. You know, I continued, my voice dripping with a calm confidence I hadn't known I had. I'm not afraid to take this higher up. You know the HR department doesn't take kindly to these kinds of jokes, right? I'm sure they'd love to have a conversation about workplace boundaries. I watched as his face drained of color. He didn't expect this. He thought he had me cornered, thought I'd cower in fear, but I had him right where I wanted him. Let's not make this more of an issue than it needs to be, he said, trying to backpedal. It was a joke. I didn't mean anything by it. Oh, I know you didn't mean anything by it, I shot back, crossing my arms. But now you know how it feels to be on the receiving end of a harmless joke, so maybe think twice next time before you cross that line. Got it? There was a long, tense silence, and for a moment I thought he might actually try to argue more. But instead, he just nodded, his lips tight. Yeah, I got it, he muttered. Good, I said, turning to grab my purse from my desk, signaling that the conversation was over. And just so we're clear, I don't need to get my boyfriend involved in this. But if you ever pull that shit again, I will. He stood there, frozen, as I walked past him without another word. I could feel the power I had over the situation, and as I stepped into the elevator, I realized that I had just taken control. I had stood up for myself, and for once, I didn't feel like the victim.